All right, in the last video, we created all of our fields in our create profile component, okay, including the select list and text areas, social links, all that stuff. Now we want to actually handle the form submission. So we have it going to on submit. Right now it's just going to console log submit. Obviously that's not what we want. What we want to do is call an action. Okay, so what we'll do is go to our profile actions, and we need an action to actually create a profile, right? We have a back-end route for that. So let's go ahead and add that. So we'll go right under the get profile or get current profile, and let's say create profile, and we're going to export const, we'll call it create profile, and it's going to take in two things. It's going to take in the profile data. Obviously we need that. It's also going to take in history. Remember, if we want to redirect, we have to use that with router in our component and then pass in this .props.history so that we can redirect, because once we create the profile we simply want to redirect. All right, we also want to use dispatch, so we need to add that in here as well. So we're using redux thunk, and then we have our function. So we want to make an Axios call. We'll say Axios, let's go on the next line and say .post. We want a post request to /API/profile. That's the route to create a profile. It's going to take in the profile data. Okay, obviously we need that. And then it'll give us a promise back. Okay, so we'll get the result. And then once we get that result, we're just going to history.push, because we want to redirect, and we want to redirect back to the dashboard. Okay, like that. Now, if there's an error, so in our catch, so if we get back a 400 error, then we want to dispatch. Let's see, we want to dispatch and pass in an object, and we want the type to be get_errors. Payload is going to be the error.response.data. So this is working just like our registration and login form if there's any errors. Now I don't think we brought in the getErrors type, so let's go ahead and do that. We'll go up here and say get errors, and we'll save this. Okay, so now that should be it. If it works and it creates the profile, we'll redirect. If not, it's going to give us some errors. It's going to go through the errors reducer, because the error reducer looks for this. In fact, we can take a look at that real quick. It'll look for get errors. It'll return the payload, which will be the actual errors. And then in our create profile, if we go down, if you remember, we're actually listening for that right here. We're listening for the error state. Now, just like in the login and registration, we're going to use that component will receive props lifecycle method. So up here, let's go above the on submit, we'll say component will receive props, and that takes in a property of next props, which includes any new properties, and we're going to test for the errors. So we'll say if next props dot errors, if that exists, then we want to set the errors in our component state. So this dot set state, and we want to set errors to next props dot errors. Okay, so that'll fill the state. We're taking the errors out of the state here, and if there are any, they should display in the field. All right, so let's try that part of it out, the errors part. We're not sending any data or anything yet, so we should get errors, obviously. Oh, you know what though? We have to actually call it. So we have to call the create profile action. So let's bring that in. We'll say import create profile from, and it's going to be /actions/profile actions. And then of course we have to add that down at the bottom. to the second parameter of connect inside an object. So create profile, and then let's go back up to our on submit. Okay, we'll get rid of this console log. Now we do have to get all of our form fields. So what we'll do is we'll create a profile data variable, which will be an object, and it's going to have all of the profile fields. So I'm going to paste this in because it's quite a bit. So we have our handle, which comes from, everything is going to come from the state. Okay, handle, company, website, all the fields that are in the form. Then we want to call this dot create profile. I'm sorry, this dot props. Whenever we call a Redux action, it's in the property or in the props. And then we want to pass in here profile data. And then remember, we need to pass in the history so that we can redirect. So this dot props history. Now this isn't going to work by default because we need to use with router from the React router DOM. So let's bring that in real quick. We'll say import with router, and I know I'm going kind of fast, but it's just because we've already done this. So this comes from React router DOM, and then we simply need to go down to the bottom and wrap the component that we export with router. Oops, let's put another parentheses here, and that should do it. So let's save. Let's check this out. Profile data is not defined. Let's see. So up here, profile data. I said profile date. I have an issue with calling data date. Let's see. Export default imported as create profile is not found in profile actions. So we imported. That's because this actually needs to have curly braces around it. All right, no more errors. So let's try it out. What I'm going to do, let's look at the console. Good, no errors. Let's look at Redux, and let's try and submit this with nothing. Awesome. So what's happening is it's hitting our back end, and it's hitting, remember, the validation file we created in the back end where we said that the handle is required, the status is required, skills is required, and it's giving us those errors back, and then we're displaying them through our inputs. All right, so if I were to select something here and resubmit, and then that error goes away, and you can see the diff, the only difference between the last request is that now status is no longer there. That error is no longer there. In our state, we still have those two other errors. So it should actually work now. I mean, we have our action, and if it does create the profile, it should redirect us back to the dashboard. So let's actually try it. For the handle, we'll say John Doe. We'll put some stuff in here. I want the Brad profile to be the one that we actually really build up and add everything. But let's just say, we'll say Edusoft for the company. Edusoft.com. Skills, we'll say HTML, CSS, PHP. I won't do a GitHub username. I'm not going to do a bio either, because we need to handle, when we create our profiles, we need to be able to handle users that don't have this stuff too. So social network links, let's add one. Whoops. Oh, I just submitted it, didn't I? Shoot. Well, we know that it works. I didn't mean to submit it right then, but now it's saying to do display profile, because we had the logic we had was to display that button if there wasn't a profile. Let's take a look at the state now and look in profile, and there it is. Okay, and if we look in MongoDB or MLab, let's log in. We should now have a profile. So let's see, we have users. So we have two users, which is Brad and John, profiles. And there's the one we just filled out. All right, now I didn't think I hit submit though, did I? I thought I hit that. Let me just check the markup real quick and create profile. So let's see. Button on click. Oh, you know what? It did submit because I didn't put a type. It's looking at this as a submit button. So we need to make sure that we say type is button. That's why it actually submitted. But we know it is actually working. Now, if I go and I delete from the database directly, if I delete that profile we just created, and we go back and we reload, now it's back to this screen because John no longer has a profile. If we look in state, he doesn't have a profile. So let's do that again and make sure that that actually doesn't submit. So we'll say junior developer at Edusoft. We'll just do skills. And now if I click add social links, now it doesn't submit. It actually lets us put in a link here, put in our links. All right, so now let's submit, and there we go. Good. So in our state, now we have that profile filled. Exactly what we want. So the next thing to do is to handle this, to handle what the dashboard is going to give us if the user actually has a profile. Okay, and we're going to split it up. We're going to have the actions, which will be its own component. We're going to have the experience and education list or tables, which will be their own component as well. All right, so that's it for this video, guys. We're getting there. Things are working out. Things are coming together. So we will continue in the next.